Hi everyone, we're doing a chapter 4 section 3 video today, and we're going to be talking about how can I solve one-step equations with multiplication or division. So we've worked on this in class or in previous videos just a little bit already, and we're working on these inequality problems, so problems that aren't just the regular equal sign, we're talking less than greater than symbols, and we want to be able to solve them. So our first example, example 1 that we're going to dive into, is going to be this. X over 7 is less than or equal to negative 5. Go ahead and write that in your notebook and give yourself some space to do some work here. X over 7 is less than or equal to negative 5. Now, we solve this just like we do any equation. We put the line down the symbol there, down the middle, and we try to get x all by itself. We try to isolate the variable. So I need to get rid of that 7, and right now it's in a fraction, so that means x divided by 7. So to get rid of it, we're going to be timesing it to the other side. Multiplying the 7 over gets rid of it. So we get x all by itself, just like we wanted, but it's not x equals, it's x is less than or equal to. So we make sure we use the correct symbol. And a negative 5 times 7, well, I know 5 times 7 is 35, and it doesn't match. It's a negative times a positive, so that's not good. So that's a negative 35. So x is less than or equal to negative 35 is our final solution. So we have our answer. Awesome. Now, how can I bump this up to a level 4? Well, I'm probably not going to check my answer exactly because checking would be a little complicated. The answer for x is anything less than or equal to negative 35. So I could think of a lot of numbers that are less than negative 35, and they'd all count as being an answer. So I'm not going to check all those answers. Instead, I'm going to graph them on a number line and show it visually. So what's the most important number that we're going to need on this number line? Well, negative 35, our answer, or part of our answer. So I'm going to put negative 35 somewhere in the middle of the number line. Just pick kind of a random spot in the middle-ish. And then I'm going to pick a few numbers on the right and the left. So like negative 34, negative 33, negative 32, 31, 30. That'd be some numbers on the right. On the other side, it'd be like negative 36, 37, and negative 38. And you can fill your number line in as far as you really want to go with it, to be honest. Just make sure it's nice and organized and that your tick marks for your scale are evenly separated. This is where graph paper is kind of handy. And I'm going to circle negative 35 because that's the point we're focusing on. Now, x is less than or equal to negative 35. So less than means we're going to the left, to the less than values. 36, 37, 38, negative 36, negative 37, negative 38 is less than negative 35. I also have to think about, what about the point itself? Should it be empty or solid? Well, it's going to be solid because we have an equal sign in this problem. And if x is equal to negative 35, then we got to fill it in. So here's our solution. We've got our number line all shaded to the left. We've got a solid point on negative 35, and we've circled our answer. We have a lot of detail here. Let's try another problem. Let's do an example 2. So here is example 2. 3 is greater than x over negative 2. Go ahead and write that one down. 3 is greater than x over negative 2. Okay, same story. We're going to put a line down the sign, down the middle, and we're going to try to get x by itself and isolate the variable. This time, we got to move negative 2 away from the x. So we're going to take that negative 2 and multiply it to the other side again because it's in a fraction, which is division, so we got to multiply to get rid of it. So that's going to get rid of the negative 2, and we're going to have x isolated by itself. But what did we just do? Well, we just multiplied by a negative 2. We learned in our last video, when we multiply by a negative number, that negative 2 being multiplied to the other side is a flip the sign problem. We have to flip our symbol. So now it's going to look like this. X is greater than 2 times 3 is 6. A negative times a positive doesn't match, so negative 6. X is greater than negative 6. There's our answer. And we had to flip that symbol because we multiplied by that negative 2. So, okay, bring in the number line. What number has to go on our number line for sure? Well, negative 6 has to go on our number line. And you can pause the video to make your number line nice and neat. I go kind of fast with my on the screen here, but yeah, pause the video when you need to. So numbers that go around -6 would be like -5, -4, -3, 2, 1. And then on the opposite side, it'd be like 7, 8, 9, 10. -7, -8, -9. I'm going to circle -6 because that's the point I care about. And then I'm going to think about which way am I going to shade. So this is a little tricky. I'm going to be shading to the right. X is greater than -6 when I read this problem. So X could be -5, it could be -4, it could be 100. 100 is greater than -6. It's anything to the right. Well, what about the hole? Am I going to fill it in or leave it empty? I'm going to leave it empty because there's no equal sign. It's not equal to -6, so it's everything greater than -6. So it stays empty, and this is my graph. I'm actually done at this point. I've got everything I need on there. Okay, so it's your turn now. Let's test you out and see if you're ready for this. So here is your you try problem. Today, you're going to solve for y. Y over -2 is greater than -7. Right now, hit the pause button on your device and see if you can correctly solve and graph this. All right, are you ready to check your answer? I hope you're all done with the problem. I hope you pause the video and now you're unpausing to see if you've got this down. So hopefully you have the line down the middle. You want to get y all by itself, so you probably flip that -2 over to the other side to times it. When you multiply by -2, this is one of those situations where we're going to flip the symbol. Now it's going to be y is less than 7 times 2, which is 14. And negative times a negative is a match, so it's a positive 14. That is our solution. So how did you do? Did you get the same thing as me? Y is less than 14. And on top of that, even if you got the same thing as me, how's your number line look? Did you put 14 somewhere in the middle-ish? And then like 15, 16, 17, and probably 13, 12, 11. And circle 14, it's going to stay an empty hole. We don't have an equal sign today. And y is anything less than 14, so less than would be to the left, all the littler values. And that's it. That's our number line. So check your solution, see how you did, see if you remember to flip the sign, see if you got a positive 14, and how'd your graph look? Did it look the same as me? Cool. Okay, so another example before we wrap up this video, example 3. For this example, we're going to solve this problem. -8x is less than 2. Okay, so this one's going to be interesting. We're going to get x by itself, so line down the middle. What do we do to get rid of that -8 when it's -8x? Well, technically it's -8 times x. So the opposite is we're going to divide it away. We're going to use fraction lines for our division. That's going to get rid of our -8. Then we're going to have x isolated by itself. But what are we doing here? We're dividing by a negative. It's a flip the sign problem. So it's going to be actually turning into x is greater than 2 divided by -8. Now 2 divided by -8 is decimal. I already know that for a fact. And 2 is positive and 8 is negative. Doesn't match. So if you want to use a calculator, if you need a calculator, 2 divided by 8 is 0.25. So we're going to have a -0.25. You probably should practice putting that in your calculator just to make sure. There's a lot of students that type it in the wrong order. They type the 8 first and then the 2. It's the other way around. It's 2 divided by -8. You go top to bottom. So 2 goes first in the calculator, divided by -8. Now, how are we going to do a number line with this decimal? That's going to be tricky. So I'm going to bring in my number line. Go ahead and draw yours in your notebook. So on my number line, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 0 somewhere in the middle. I'm going to put numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and -1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess they just went to -3, but close enough. I'm going to circle close to 0. Notice it's -0.25. It's a tiny decimal just a little bit to the left of 0. So I'm going to circle just a little bit to the left. And then my answer is x is greater than -0.25. So anything greater than, which would be to the right, counts as a solution. Now there's no equal sign, so I got to leave it as an empty hole, and then that's going to be my answer. Notice though that I'm circling just a little to the left of 0. I'm trying to show that it's negative 0.25. That's a little hard to do on the number line to make it look nice and neat, so be sure your number line looks good when you draw it. Some of you that don't use a ruler and you just kind of throw a line up there and quickly throw your scale notches, it can get kind of messy and hard to read, so be neat and organized about this. Okay, so we've got our correctly circled point, we've got our graph, we've got our answer. We're good on this problem. Let's wrap up this video. So to summarize what we've kind of focused on today, we are working on flip the sign problems. We really are working on just looking for when are we multiplying or dividing by a negative number, because if we multiply or divide by a negative number, we flip the symbol, we switch the sign. And we got to get that kind of in our head because there's not going to be anything that reminds us of that later on. We just got to know it. So that's kind of the end of our video, and that's kind of the big takeaway today. Thanks for watching, guys. I will definitely see you in the next video. Bye.